So I came across this very particular video, and the lady said everything she said, no breakdown, no explanation, just a statement. You know what? Let's watch the video together.
I believe the root of almost every issue in the natural hair community is texturism. Second to that being misinformation. And third to that, we have overconsumption. And I don't think I'm going to explain that further.
So in this video, I want to slowly, clearly, and honestly explain what she meant and why what she said, why the statement she made is actually very correct, and how these three things that she mentioned, texturism, overconsumption, and misinformation, are actually deeply connected. All right. Hey, my loves, welcome back to my channel. And if you're seeing my face for the first time, my name is Oma, and I create content around natural hair, real hair talks, and real life hair experiences. If that is something you're interested in, please do well to like, subscribe, and join the family. But if you do not actually vibe with stuff like this, you can just do well to watch the video to the end, and I am very okay with that. When she says the root of almost every issue, she means texturism is the foundation, that is the starting point. Texturism is bias or preference based on hair texture, especially in the black hair community. It usually favors a certain set of hair type. It usually favors looser curls that shows length easily. It usually favors hair that clumps naturally, and it disfavors hair with heavy shrinkage, hair that doesn't show visible curl patterns or coils, tighter coils, and kinkier textures. So having these basics now would help us to understand more on what we are going to talk about in this video. It will help us to have a base. It will help us to be in alignment with each other. All right. So now, having explained what texturism is, the type of hair types that it favors, and the type of hair type that it disfavors, let's get in depth into explaining what she meant by that video. Texturism is not always loud, it's not always insult, it's not always bad. It's usually someone saying foxy hair is bad. When it comes to texturism, it's not always bad, it's not always loud, it's not always insult. It's usually someone somewhere saying that foxy hair is bad, foxy hair is not supposed to exist. And most of the times, texturism shows up as standards on what your hair should look like, what healthy hair should look like, what good results should look like, and what progress should also look like. That is how texturism most of the times shows. It also shows up as what natural hair is supposed to do. Once those standards are set, every other thing is judged against them. This is why so many arguments exist in the natural hair community. Because I wonder why someone would just come up and set a particular standard, like make a particular rule, and then everyone follows. And when that particular rule is not being followed, your hair is not functioning well. This is why a lot of arguments exist in the natural hair community. Because once looser textures become the reference point, shrinkage is treated like flaws, freeze is treated like failure, lack of definition is treated like damage, slower visible length is treated as if you're doing something wrong, as if you're not doing what every other person is doing. Because why? The loser curls has been made the reference point. So when someone's hair behaves differently from all these, then the argument is not that your hair is different. The argument is that your hair is unhealthy, you're not taking care of your hair properly, or you're using the wrong products. And that is how texturism becomes the root of all these conflicts. Now, this is where the second part of her statement comes in. She said, second to texturism is misinformation. And slowly also, I am going to explain that. This is very important because misinformation does not exist on its own. It grows on top of bias. When one texture is treated like the standard, advice from that particular texture is treated as universal. misinformation. Now, let's take for example, when someone says, this is what I do and it works, instead of saying, this is what works for my hair, the internet hears, this is what works for everyone. That is where misinformation starts. Another example is this. Misinformation sounds like this. If your hair is not moisturized, it won't feel dry. How? If your hair breaks, it's damaged. All natural hair should retain length the same way. Misinformation. If your curls aren't defined, something is wrong. Misinformation. But then again, tighter curls shrinks more, lose moisture faster, shows dryness quick, and then hides length. So when all this advice now doesn't work, the person taking the advice that had already taken the advice is being blamed and not the advice. And that is where misinformation comes in. It is fueled by textualism. Misinformation is fueled by textualism. Now let's talk about the third thing she mentioned, overconsumption. Overconsumption doesn't start because people love buying products. No, overconsumption starts because people are trying to fix the problem they think they already have or the problem they think they have. And where did that problem come from? Comparison. When your hair doesn't look like what you see online or doesn't behave like what you see online, you assume that you need new products, expensive products, more products, extra products. So you keep buying and buying and buying, and then your hair keeps failing, not because your hair just decided to fail on its own, but because the standard was never made for your hair texture. The standard was never made for your hair texture. And that is how overconsumption becomes the final layer. Alright, now let's put all this together. Let's put the three statements or words together. Putting them together, we have texturism sets the standard. Misinformation spreads advice based on that standard. Overconsumption happens when people try to force their hair to meet that standard, and that is the cycle. It keeps going round and round and round. Let's look at it this way. Once you remove texturism, what happens? Misinformation loses power, overconsumption slows down, and people stop fighting their hair. Now let's get things straight. She wasn't saying looser hair is bad, tighter hair is better, or that any of these is evil. She was saying we cannot fit the natural hair community without first being honest about the bias. So yeah, if we want to get things right, we need to first of all become honest about the bias. If we want to get things right in the natural hair community, in the black natural hair community, we need to first become honest about the bias. If you enjoyed watching this video just as much as I enjoyed creating it, let me know if you understood my explanation. If you have any other thing to add to my explanation, please drop them in the comment section, share this video, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Peace.